Put on your seatbelts. I'm going to build on what Mark talked about a couple of weeks ago. You are the center of the universe. Each and every one of us are the center of the universe. You're affirming it every week when you come here. Because I just heard John read, we are one with God. If there is just oneness, then how do we explain that we are God? Understand, Mark told you that. Every one of you, you're God. You're the center of the universe. You affirm it every week. You can't back off on that. Now, you may question a lot of the rest of the stuff that I say. But what we're dealing with here is how do we deal with that we are the oneness of God. We are the center of the universe. Because, you know, in quantum mechanics, quantum physics, they say there is no center to the universe. There was a big bang, but it wasn't like a firecracker going off. We go, oh, that's where the explosion was. The universe has no center. Because each one of us is the center, and that's paradoxical. You can't understand this. Most of what I'm going to be telling you, you can't get it with your head. It's an experience. It's a feeling in which there's a knowingness that comes to us. And every one of us have had these experiences of a knowingness. Maybe it was at the birth of a baby or at the death of someone. Those are two really transition points. You know, in Unity, we even say, people don't die, they make transition. What dies? Well, the body, this physical body, was never meant to be permanent. It's a creation. It's a carbon-based life form. And this carbon-based life form is created by consciousness. This body exists for a time, and it will return to earth elements. This body that you have created from consciousness, not from a personal self, but from an impersonal self, that you created this form to have this human earth journey, to learn life's lessons, is to know that, and the challenge we all have is we all are attached to these bodies. We think this body is something. This body's me. No, it's not. Wrong. If I'd given you a pop quiz and asked you that, and you said, yep, my body's me, check mark, I'd have to flunk you. You'd flunk. Because, you know, and this is the wrap-up of my 5-part series on unity principles. But in these unity principles, you hear them with always a Christian slant to it. And, of course, if you've been here, I'm bringing in a Buddhist. I'm adding Buddhism to it. Because for me, I have found so much help in getting bigger than just my Christian upbringing, getting bigger than just my Buddhist experiences, getting bigger than some of the Hindu principles I like, getting bigger than science, because it's like science is where the mystery is. The more we know, the less we know. It's a paradox, and that's the very nature of this life. That's the very nature of who we are, because this dense energy of form looks so real and so solid, right? I mean, it's like, man, that guy is solid. But that is an illusion. Yeah. Martha, this guy is solid, let me tell you. But if anybody had a science class about the nature of matter, he's made up of cells. And those cells are made up of molecules, carbon-based life form, made up of molecules. And those molecules are made up of atoms. And what do we know about atoms? They're 99.999999% empty. There is no matter in the universe. It's all energy. And we are that energy. There's an aliveness to us. But this aliveness only exists when we're present in the human body. What happens when you go to sleep at night? You go unconscious. And when you're unconscious, where are you? Where did you go? Because if you think about it, every morning when you wake up, it's like you're like a computer that has to be rebooted. Have you ever been startled awake someplace? And you go, whoa, where am I? Who am I? What's going on? Because the system didn't get the chance to gradually wake up and reboot itself. If you're somebody that has to wake up to an alarm, that's kind of troubling, isn't it? Usually it feels like you're getting your best sleep when that alarm goes off. It's like, whoa. I haven't used an alarm in a couple of decades because we actually can connect with the consciousness of who we are. And you'll know. Now, it isn't that I don't have a clock. I got a smartphone. And at 69, let me tell you, it really helps me because I'm having more and more senior moments. So I really like the smartphone. Of course, it's challenging to learn how to use when you're barely computer literate. But this process of life is truly a mystery. But what we're doing is, what I want you to do is to kind of back up stuff. And this idea is, rather than us looking for God, because most Christians tend to think of God as transcendent, right? And God is up there, and I pray for God's help. But you know, the great theological debate is God transcendent or is God immanent? So I have no trouble with a transcendent God. What's important to me, though, is the immanent divine within me. God is immanent. And to know the divinity in yourself, because Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within, and to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must come as a child. And the qualities of that child is innocent, trusting, vulnerable. How many of you are still vulnerable like a child when you go to work in the morning? You were with me up till then, right? Now, when you go to work in the morning, how vulnerable does it feel? It would feel pretty bad because there's a lot of conflict in the world. But the truth is, to know that God is transcendent and immanent is for you to go back in because that inner child still lives there. And you still have the capacity for innocence and trust and vulnerability for yourself. But what happens is we're born and we grow up in a world, and to survive, that means that we create a survival strategy in this world. And that cuts us off from our divinity. Because we start thinking, analyzing, we develop beliefs. Our family system teaches us how to stay safe, what's important in the world. And we go to school, we go to church, we start interacting with people. And most people do not act from their divine nature, right? How many of you always act from your divine nature? Right. I was just waiting to see if I've got any wild card out there. It's going to go, I do, Ben. I do. I'm always acting from my divine nature. And you know, if somebody said that, it's true. Because in God's universe, there is creation and destruction happening all the time. The divinity within us is both saint and sinner. The challenge in this relative world of human form is we get trapped in our beliefs and our concepts. And that feels real to us, but it is not. Now, beliefs and concepts, we need those to operate in this relative world of human forms. Absolutely. But the very nature of an ego mind, an analytical mind, is it's dualistic. And the way the dualistic mind works, it's good and bad, right and wrong. And I'm good, and if I'm good, then somebody has to be bad. If I'm right, then somebody has to be wrong. What if nobody's good and nobody's bad? What if nobody's right and nobody's wrong? What if it's just the nature of the universe in this creation and destruction for us to realize who we really are, because we're living in this creation and destruction every day? The Buddha taught that every one of us will experience suffering in life. And what the Buddha taught is, don't turn away from your suffering. Don't turn away from your problems. Don't turn away from your stress. Don't turn away from the crucible that is your life. Rather, turn towards your suffering. Turn towards your stress. Turn towards the difficulties in life and look inside to see how you have manifested the world you've created. Because that's what I have found out after 27 years. This life that I've experienced has been a creation of consciousness that isn't me. But it's the nature of consciousness to create. It's the nature of God to create. I could call God consciousness, because consciousness is every place. There's nothing devoid of consciousness. These chairs have consciousness. These walls have consciousness. It's all divine. That wall is not solid. Man, I had one student of mine that is like, if I hit my head against that wall, Ben, it's going to hurt. You're right, it will. So I would suggest you not hit your head against that wall. The challenge is to expand our consciousness from just the concepts and the beliefs that we identify with. There's nothing bad or wrong about that, but it's a part of the relative world. And if you start expanding your consciousness, you will start growing in unity principles that says you're not this finite, limited form. So we start talking then about soul. We start talking about spirit. We start getting bigger without understanding, without an explanation. And let me tell you, for a guy that believed that his understanding was key to his freedom and happiness, and I've got numerous degrees, I've got an analytical mind. When they came out with Trivial Pursuit, I was so elated because all the trivia I had accumulated. And it didn't do one thing to help me wake up. What helped me to wake up was turning towards my suffering, turning towards my alcoholism, turning towards my depression, turning towards my road rage. Because the miracle that happens, the Course in Miracles, some of you are good Course people. I love the Course in Miracles. What is real cannot be threatened. What is unreal does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Do you ever feel threatened? That's unreal. Do you ever feel a transcendent state, a peace that passes understanding? See, it's like when Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Okay, I'm going to go over here and slap Mark and see if he turns the other cheek. Just joking, Mark. Just joking. Turn the other cheek. Who can do that? Give me a break. Love your neighbor as yourself. How can we have such hostility towards Muslims that are our neighbors? How do we do that? How do we not embrace them, accept their beliefs? We all get to choose what our operating system is. So the process of life itself is what's important, not the outcomes. Egos are always outcome oriented. So when you set goals in your life, you're thinking, you're analyzing, what's going to make me happy? And so we grasp after the things that our dualistic mind thinks will make us happy, and we push against those things that we think won't make us happy, but it's all based on a past that doesn't even exist. I challenge anybody here to show me their past. Well, wait, let me get my pictures out. No, that's not the past, that's a picture. We can't show each other our past. We love to talk about it. We believe it's true. The past does not exist. The only thing that exists is in the present moment. The only place to find God is in the present moment. The only place to find your Christ consciousness is in the present moment. It is transcendent. It is immanent. It is not subject to your belief system. It's to transcend even the concept of God. Because basically God is a concept. And of course, when I grew up Baptist, we had the right God. And all those Catholics, boy, they're in big trouble. And all those people that are not Baptists are in big trouble. Because a belief system tends to create separation. You know what our greatest suffering is? To feel separate. Because we long for connection. We all want to be connected. And what is the most painful experience of our human lives is human love. Oh boy, do we have stories about human love. Wow. What about your first love in school? The puppy love. Ain't it cute? See little kids. Oh, they're so in love. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, puppy love. They'll find out what love's about. How many of you have been divorced? Raise your hand. This is the audience participation part. Yeah, if you've been divorced. Whoa, that is painful stuff. I love pain. I used to be an attorney handling divorces. Whoa. Am I crazy or what? I've been through 2 divorces. Oh my God. Is that not enough pain? What do we love about Jesus? Unconditional love. Unconditional love. But wait a minute. This human form is conditioned. And if this form is conditioned, how can it love unconditionally? Because the pain of human love is pointing us towards something. It's pointing us towards unconditional love. And you have that potential for unconditional love. And as human beings, you still get to have human love. And you get to experience human love. But know that this is not the final level of love. Just like there's puppy love, teenagers love. How many times have you had relationships and they end and how painful it is? And then you get married and have children. The marriage may end, you still love your children. We have all these forms of love that are teaching us to turn towards our pain, to not blame, project, or say they're a bad person. But it's to look within to see, why did I attract this experience to me? Eckhart Tolle has a wonderful teaching about the law of attraction. We attract to us every experience we need in this human form for the soul's evolution. That soul's evolution, human, soul, spirit, God. Everything is an expression of God. Each one of us is an expression of God. Each one of us has that potential to wake up to who we truly are, which is consciousness, indefinable, impersonal. The Buddha taught if you purify the defilements of fear, greed, and hatred, fear, greed, and hatred is is the karma that created this human form for you. And in some aspect, you have fear, greed, and hatred operating in you, either towards yourself or towards somebody else. How many people, just by a little short answer, how many people have realized that they have self-hatred? Yeah, it's the human condition. We all grow up feeling like we're not whole and complete. We grow up feeling like we're not good enough. We all have it looks like us, we have a different story, but it's really the same story. Because Advaita Vedanta says there's 4 levels of consciousness. This is a model. The highest level of consciousness is unconditional. We can call it God, higher power. You can call it anything you want to call it. Brahman. From the unconditioned state, we come down to a causal consciousness. And that causal consciousness is where your karma resides. Because you are the center of the universe, every thought, word, and deed. D is really a good friend of mine, but that's not who I'm talking about. Every thought, word, and deed creates your world. This is living the unity principles to realize that the world that you see out here, every person, place, and thing that you see out here, you have created. You're that powerful. Drop the blame, drop the judgments, drop the criticism of yourself and others. You know what happens if you drop the judgmentalism and criticism of yourself? The world becomes a more loving place. So the unconditioned state of consciousness, down to the causal state of consciousness, and that's where karma resides. Then it crosses the veil into this physical world of energy. And subtle consciousness are your dream states, your chakras, the things that can't be seen or touched or felt or smelled or tasted. The subtle consciousness into this physical body. This body is just the densest energy we experience. From across the veil, coming into this world of energy, is karma is created by fear, greed, and hatred. When you start doing the Course in Miracles, what do you find? Everyone is calling for love. But there are fearful people. And fearful people will try to destroy what they think they can't have, which is love. Why would they destroy Jesus? But did they succeed? Of course not. Because just like Jesus' crucifixion experience, every moment of suffering in your life is an opportunity to wake up because you have created it. It's not out there. It's not the people, places, and things that you tell your stories about. That ex-spouse that was so abusive, or that co-worker at work, or that family member you can't stand. And it doesn't mean you have to love everybody. It simply says, have the courage to look inside. And that's after 27 years of spiritual practice. This is what I do with people. I call it wisdom training. I get people to look inside, purify the pain body, that Eckhart Tolle calls it, purify your pain body, and when you do, the world starts changing. Some of you have heard me say, I grew up in a family where they were incredibly emotionally and physically abusive. And boy, did I rail against my family. Was I angry at my family? And I had 2 marriages. Now I'm in the most loving relationship. I couldn't even ask God for this relationship with Dawn. Some of you have met her. She is so beautiful, and I'm more in love with her 12 years later. My pattern was after 7 years, I'm out of the relationship. 22 years, but my first marriage, we got divorced after 22 years. So 7 years, I loved her, and the next 15 was living in hell for her and me. The second marriage, I got out after 7 years. Now I'm in a relationship because my mom always said third time's a charm. And mamas know, don't they, Martha? When mama says something, Jody, they know what they're talking about, don't they? Third time's a charm. The life I'm living now is off the charts. I have purified the desire for alcohol to numb myself out, to not feel my pain. I've purified my depression. I've purified my road rage. I've got one of the best friends sitting over here playing with his guitar that anybody could ever ask for. The men that I grew up with were very abusive, would ridicule and humiliate me. Victor simply loves me, supports me. I've created a new world for myself. I've got a wife after 12 years that I am more in love with today than I was when I met her. That's a miracle in my life. This guy is a miracle in my life. Course in Miracles. Miracles are everywhere. But you got to be willing to do the inner journey, to do the inner work, because it's not out here. It is within you. So the God camp that I said this was going to be, that somehow got lost in the ethers, but the first unity principle is God. Second principle is Christ. Third is action, which is actually the fifth principle. M is the law of mind action. The way we think determines how we live our lives. Every thought, word, and deed has karmic consequences. So unity says denials and affirmations. Quit thinking negatively, think positive. But then be willing to feel what's being felt in your body when you try to go from a negative to a positive. Because if you're not conscious of the energy in your body, you're going to cling to that negative for dear life. And you can say that affirmation as long as you want to, and it ain't going to be real until you purify that energy in the body. And then prayer and meditation. And that's how, and so over there you got 5 principles. And it says it isn't enough just to believe these 4 principles. It means you got to live them. It's the crucible of your life is where you find the freedom, where you find your own divinity. Because you affirm it every week. You are the Christ consciousness. You are God expressing in this world. And God created the universe. The most beautiful pictures we have from the Hubble telescope are what? Things blowing up. Oh my God, the eye of God is this big explosion going on. All these beautiful things out there. So destruction and creation is the very nature of God's mind. Beyond our concepts, beyond our beliefs. It's to look deep inside and find out who you truly are. And I tell you what, if you've got that kind of courage, I'm leading a retreat November 1st to 8th over in Lake Pomme de Terre in Missouri. Come over and hang out with me. Because what we do is we take away everything that distracts you. No reading, no writing, no radio, no television, very little talking. And you're sitting there alone with yourself. And that is the scariest thing you can do. It is absolutely terrifying to be alone with your own mind and to see the patterns in the mind. And they're not bad or wrong. They're simply the karmic creation of form, of consciousness expressing in this human world. And then maybe you can become like the Zen monks, that when their time is done in this human body, they write a 4-line haiku about their life. They set it down in front of them, and they sit down on their bench, and they simply leave the body. Death is really quite easy. It's the clinging to our human form that causes us suffering. And there's a Buddhist saying, die before you die. Die to the ego, die to the concepts, die to the beliefs that keep you tethered to this human form that causes such suffering when we're dying. And all it requires is an open hand.